Hey, what is going on, guys? Power Gaming here, back with another Identity podcast. However, in this podcast I have the devs on with me to answer questions that you guys left me on the previous video. It was super awesome speaking to the devs, they are really cool guys and I hope you will enjoy the video. Also, I do apologise if I butcher anyone's name. Luckily though, I had Motown there to correct me. Anyway guys, I will stop talking and let the devs introduce themselves. Enjoy the video.
Hi, so I'm John Vanderswet, known as Paratus, and I'm the CEO and project manager for Identity. So I'm the big boss, I guess, and I'm also the voice you hear on most of the videos too.
Hey, I'm Sean Valentine, or Motown. I'm the community manager for Identity. I'm also a producer and a 3D artist for the project.
So we'll get right into the questions. So the first question is from Gabe Profit, and he says, I would like to know if there will be a homicide department. I'm guessing this is in terms of like police ranks.
There is, but not called homicide specifically. The detective class will essentially handle most of that if you're talking about, hunting down the bad guy and finding out who did it.
Will there be like ranks within the detective career?
There is. There's also progression in sort of, I guess you'd say, like the talent tree, where as you progress as a detective, you get better abilities and such. And that applies to all the different branches as well.
Right, okay. So the next question is from someone called Salvatore. I'm not going to say your last name because I'll probably butcher it, but he says, what happens if you die in Identity?
Salvatore Villafana, that's his name. What happens if you die in Identity? So what happens is you will lay unconscious until a timer runs out. If somebody comes about and revives you in that time, you will not lose anything other than the money you might lose if a player comes and loots you in the time you're waiting for a revive. You may also respawn at your last bind location. That might be your house. That might be a location in the city, a hotel, an apartment.
Yeah, so the main thing there is that when you're dead and you're bleeding out on the ground, people can loot your money that's on hand, so it's a good idea to keep, most of your money is going to be in the bank, so it's not really a problem. But if you just made some kind of a shady transaction, have cash on hand, then yeah, you can take it, but you could get in trouble for it too. But yeah, there's I guess you could describe it, it's sort of there's a lot of risk and reward there. Some items cannot be looted even if you fully die, but a lot of them can as well. So if you bleed out and you're just a dead corpse there, people can take a lot of your items, such as weapons and that sort of thing.
Right, so regards to that, I think I remember seeing a tweet where, like, when you die, you don't lose your clothes like you do in Arma 3 Altus Life, if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, you're right. We didn't really want to allow people to loot anything that's kind of either doesn't really give a real advantage, something cosmetic, or something that's critical too. Like your cell phone obviously can never be looted. There are things that can't be. It's more PvP centric items that can be looted.
And clothing is really personal to players in a social environment. So we don't want to make players lose something that is really dear to them.
So this next question is going to be pretty easy to answer. It's from Lays Viral. Is it running on Unreal 4?
I'll take that one. Yes.
Right. Right. So Valentino Reynolds says, when will it come to consoles, or will it come to consoles at all?
Okay, so currently, we would really like to port Identity to consoles, but we're just not sure yet how we're going to do that. So, we'll definitely do our research as we complete the PC version of Identity, but we don't want to make any promises yet. However, we'll definitely look into it.
Right, nice. Right, so this next question by Hughborn, he compares it to like Euro Truck Simulator, where he asks why is he taking goods to a certain location, and if anyone actually needs them or anyone's using anything that you make. Are real customers using what you produce in Identity?
What's being transported by the delivery corporation?
Yeah.
So yes, the short answer is absolutely. These items are being transported to distribution hubs around the map, and these distribution hubs are kind of like an auction house seen in other games. And what these do is they supply all the goods to the small businesses around the map that, or in the areas around the distribution hubs. And maybe John wants to expand on that.
There's not a ton more to say. That's kind of the gist of it. But essentially, when you go to one of these hubs as a truck driver, if you work for a trucking corporation, for example, you're going to see a lot of tasks that are available for transporting goods. So say somebody goes on their computer in their home and they like some clothing that another player is selling in their shop on the other side of the town. Then instead of actually going there to the shop yourself because you're lazy, you can just buy it online. And when that happens now, that has to be transported. So a transport driver is going to get a task to move it to you. Well, first it'll go to the hub, and then from the hub it can go directly to a house with like a little van or something. And yeah, now if there's not any task being done, if no one's ordering things or no real shipping needing done, then the system will actually fill in tasks with generic items.
Specifically, these tasks are presented to the player on a contract board, and so these truck drivers go to the contract board and they select a contract and they complete that contract.
Right, so say if I bought something online, let's just say I bought a new piece of furniture. If the corporation that's delivering that doesn't deliver it properly to me, will the computer take over from there?
You'll get it automatically over a certain amount of time. So the truck driver will get it to you faster. But if that doesn't happen, then it could be an hour plus before it gets to you automatically. Now, if you don't want that wait and you don't want to wait for a truck driver, your option is just to literally go to where it's being sold to and get it yourself.
Next question from Atua Simmer. Will there be anything to do with relationships within the gameplay, such as the types of relationships people have with different people in reality, such as friendships?
I mean, it's hard to like just put a label on what is a friendship because, you know, there's not necessarily there is a friends list, there is a contact list. So I guess in that sense, yes. So on your phone, you have a smartphone, everybody does, and you have, a contact list there, like on your real phone for when you meet people, you can add them on there. But we do have mechanics. Well, it's more like we give the sandbox tools the freedom to do these sorts of things. So like you can go to a jewelry store, you can buy a ring, you can propose to somebody, you can get married in a church. You know, we give the tools to role play these things if you'd like to.
Yeah, but we want to leave the freedom to just how these players want to go about making and maintaining relationships through their own means.
Like, just expanding on that a little bit, you can have a in-game contacts list. Say if you're with a friend or someone, like I know you said, the UI was going to be very minimalistic, but will you be able to see like a little icon or something to show where your friend is?
Right now, no, in a sense, but because essentially what it is when you're going to pull up your phone, the phone itself contains most of the interface for that sort of thing. So you can go through your friends list there and you can see people and you can actually phone them with your phone and speak to them with your voice. So you would have to do that. We could, I guess it's possible. It's not something that we have on the docks right now, being able to see their location on a map, but maybe we could. But if we did do that, we'd make sure that there was a permission there where people let you see them.
Yeah. I think it would just let people be able to find each other easy instead of saying go here and walk around for half an hour looking for someone.
Yeah.
Right, so the next question from MC Midget says, will farming be in the game, animal and crop farming?
Yes, so farming will be an identity, and how this is going to work is that there will be these farm plots around the map that players can purchase, and in some cases, these farm plots are just open to the public, like anybody can just use, and plant their drugs, marijuana specifically, or whatever other crop they just want to sit and wait for to grow. However, if you are going to make use of these public farm plots, they're also vulnerable to anybody else that might come along and try to steal your crop.
Yeah, so extending on what he's talking about, imagine you're out in the forest and there's a little area there where you can plant some marijuana outside the view of other people, like a big batch of it, and let that grow. Plants do take time to grow. It's not immediately, obviously. So when you plant them and get some water in there, you have to wait a little bit. But now if you own an actual farm, then you get a private little field there where you can just do what you like.
Next question from Jacka BM. Will players stay on the same official server throughout their in-game life, or how will you tackle trying to stay in the same online community in the houses?
I guess that's kind of up to the player. You can't. So the official servers are hived. That's what we call it, where they're connected in the sense that some information, like your characters, are saved. So if you're playing on official server 3, this fall, you can go on the official server 4. Your character will be there too. The only problem is that some things will not transfer, like housing, your gangs, that kind of thing is local to that one server that you normally play on.
When you customize your character, can you save that character and use him again on a different server? Say, if I created one on official and then when it wanted to go onto like a roleplay private server, could I do that?
Well, typically the community servers are going to have their own hives, so we haven't determined if we're going to allow them to network together. They won't be with the official one, so they're going to definitely be separated.
If you switch from an official server to a private server, or another private server owned by somebody else to a different private server, you will have to recreate your character.
This is actually something, though. Remember, like a week ago, we had a meeting where we were actually discussing this very thing. And we do have the ability to allow transfers, but if we do go that route, then it's going to be something that the server operator where you're transferring to has to allow.
Another question from yourself says, if you pledge now, pay for the founder pack, can you get into the game at all, or is it a waiting thing for beta test?
I don't remember asking that question.
From yourself. Okay, so the founder pack is the second package for $30 at the moment. It will probably increase in price in the near future as we make some changes to our website. However, at the moment, if you purchase the founder pack, you will have access to the beta test as well as the full release of the game when it's finally out.
Kid Flash Gaming says, will there be modern day clothes in the game such as joggers, hats, etc.?
For sure. I'll let Motown go a little more on this since this is kind of more his area than mine. But we do have modern day clothes, and we have what Motown calls sub-hubs, where essentially there's sort of like micro communities. So we like to give them their style options essentially too.
Yes. I seem to be the only person that's adopted the sub-hub title, and that's so. What a sub-hub to me is a social gathering location on the map that is specific to the theme of the people that might use it. So, say it's a biker bar, for instance. What you might expect to see there are people dressed like bikers, so those hard, tough guys, Harley Davidson, except in this game, you can't have real brands, so maybe not Harley Davidsons.
That actually reminds me a lot of how Watch Dogs 2 did their clothing systems. Like, they had different like shop types depending on what the area was like. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yes,
it is sort of like that.
Yeah, that's what we hope to achieve with Identity 2. So the place that you visit on the map might have a specific theme to it, or the place or store, rather.
Mike Games asks, do you need a really good computer to run this upcoming game?
Surprisingly, now I'm not going to go too far into this because it's way too early to really give an accurate response on this. But in our testing right now, with I say medium range, mid to high end computers, our frame rates are extremely high. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. I mean, maybe in some areas it might get a little lower, but at least like running around town square and everything, I'm in the hundreds, so I think people will be all right.
So what what graphics card would you say is the minimal for now?
Saying this sort of thing is so tricky because people could use this and be disappointed in the future.
Yeah.
Really, the thing is that we're overhauling things right now too, because the games are still ways from actually being a full retail release. We're kind of trying to aim some fidelity levels at what we expect at that time. So it is very hard to say, but there will be options to turn it down. Basically, a mid-end card right now will build play identity. I'm pretty sure, but again, I'm not certain.
Yeah, so a card that is pretty poor in performance, maybe some of the mobile graphics cards that aren't specific to gaming laptops will probably struggle with identity, because identity is a little bit further away. But so a good card, or what we might consider a pretty decent card now, might actually be a card with rather poor performance in the future. So we want to be really careful about what we say is going to be able to run identity. However, we do have some things that we could do to try to include as many different ranges of computer specs as possible, including giving LODs for all the assets around the world that you might encounter. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that with Town Square, it's a little easier, and it's not that far away, so I can be a little more accurate. Where I could say if you have a current mid-range card, you're going to be fine. But that said, we're probably going to be enhancing the area graphically between the release of Town Square and the retail release of the game as well. So things are going to change over time. But for now, you're fine in the Town Square as it is right now. We have pretty good frame rates there.
I mean, do you think if you can run Arma 3 at a decent graphical setting, when there's a lot of people in a server, do you think you could be able to run the game?
Right now, as it stands, definitely my frame rate is better than in Arma 3 right now. But like I said, we're going to improve the graphics over time too, so we'll see. But right now, yeah.
So Jacob Myran asks, how in detail would the car mechanics be?
Very, very detailed. It depends on what you're talking here. If you're talking about the actual mechanics of what you can use and how it functions, it's fairly really detailed. And even in physics, we're going for absolute realism there. The cars, as you can see from our module releases, are not currently our development focus. We're working more on the social side. So it's tough to say exactly what it's going to be like, because we're still not quite at that, but we do have some test vehicles that we have functional. We're going for pretty high realism in a sense, and when it comes to the fidelity, the functionality of a vehicle on the inside is extreme. I mean, you can control your turn signals, you can put on your seatbelt, you can roll your windows down, you can do basically almost anything that's normally interactive in a car. We're trying to make interactive. The radio.
That's actually really awesome. In regards to that, will there be, for wheel users anyway, manual transmissions?
Yep, there should be. For some vehicles, not for all.
Yeah. Something main, he would like to ask how the prison systems will work, and if you'll be able to own a business like a hotel.
Oh yeah, Physx Main, that's his name. So he asks, I would like to ask, how will the prison systems work? Will you be able to own a business like hotel or flats? So the answer is yes, you will be able. Oh, well, you won't be able to own large businesses like hotels, but you can rent some of your property to other players. A flat might be something along those lines.
For the prison system, you want to take that one too, Sean?
Yeah. So the prison system is kind of like a game in itself. When players go to prison and identity, there's actually they can actually be placed in prison or jail, and jail is for the for smaller, lesser crimes, maybe not for paying a speeding ticket or something. And you only spend like a few minutes in there, 5 to 10 minutes maximum, and then you'll be released. With a prison, you are actually participating in another level of gameplay and identity where you can actually join a prison gang. You can fight for territory. You can shank other players, or if you just don't feel like getting into that, you can just hang out inside of the rec room and chat with other people in prison and wait out your sentence.
And while you're in prison too, that's where the legal system comes into play too. So if you think that you're wrongly arrested, you could have a lawyer, law guy, argue for you in front of a jury of actual players and hope to get released early.
Darren Oliver asks, will there be parking lots and parking cars outside instead of having a garage all the time?
Both, really. Just for the sheer number of people on a server, we can't have all their vehicles constantly in the persistent world. There's no way we could do that. There'd be cars stacked up, 10 high. So there are garages where you will retrieve your vehicles when you're playing. And for parking and that sort of thing, we have sort of like areas like the town square, for example, where you have a lot of the commonly used things, your bank, your stores, all in one area. We usually have a parking lot or parking on the street designated. If you don't use proper parking spots, your car can get flagged and can get towed away. So you literally do want to park in a proper parking spot if you're going to leave it there for a little while.
Are these automated processes, or do they just happen by players?
Both, really. Like a lot of the time we want to first give players a chance to do it, and then in the case of players aren't available, then the automated systems kick in. So it'll create a job, a tasking for tow truck drivers, actual players, and if they're available, they can go do that. If it goes on for a while with no one coming, then that's when the automated stuff kicks in.
Extreme Gamer 456 asks, when you kidnap people, can you put them in your trunk?
Actually, we haven't really determined that one way or another yet, but the trunk inventory, seeing how the trunk inventory works, it might be a little strange because you're literally placing objects in your trunk and arranging them and organizing their placement inside your trunk. So it is difficult to see how a body would fit into that system, to be honest, but you can have them restrained and placed in your car at the very least.
Although we do admit that it would be pretty...
It would be cool. That's why I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, yeah, we probably could do it. So we're probably going to think of a way to get that done, to be honest.
We'll take a look.
That'd be cool, putting them in a van.
A van, yeah, for sure. But a trunk is also cool, so we're going to look into doing that.
Rasa Wood asks, I wonder if in-game you would have to wash your hands in clothes, and if you can attend a college.
Okay, well, washing hands and clothing, not so much, no. But college, this is something that we were talking about not too long ago, actually. You don't actually go to a college in the game just because simply it's a game and we want to keep things fun. We try to have nothing that's tedious in there for gameplay. It's constantly, everything has to be fun as a game first, right? But that said, there are schools, and schools are actually used for sort of like the tutorial system, teaching how to play the game and stuff like that.
Yeah, you may interact with some appliances in your house, like a sink or a bathtub, but they're not necessary for keeping up hygiene or anything. As far as the school goes, there is a school on the map that people can visit for the sake of role play. They can act out whatever scenario they want to inside the school, but it's not something that people have to go to learn anything. It's just we want to give players a variety of tools that they can use to supplement their role play scenarios, because we do really care about the role play community, and we want to attract those players to identity.
Alright, so CRT asks, if you crash, how would I fix my car? Is it like Arma 3, or do you have to get your car towed to a mechanic?
I guess I'll take it. The way it works is that when you crash your car, it depends on the severity of the crash. So if you were to go over some weird object and you wreck your tire, well, when you buy a car, they typically come with a couple spares, so you can switch out that tire and be on your way. If you crash pretty hard, and it's not like a tire repair job or something that you're going to do on the spot. Say you crash into a tree, somehow you survive. You were probably wearing your seatbelt, which is good. So at that point there, you're going to need a tow truck. Your car is mangled, probably. If the engine's damaged, a tow truck can bring it to a garage. And there's garages pretty much everywhere in all the little towns, so it's not a big, trek to bring the car there and get it fixed up. But yeah, you'll have to pay some money to get that fixed.
Alright, so Marvin Foreman asks, how do they plan to deal with money inflation and deflation? And will you start out with some money?
You start out with a little bit of money, and the inflation deflation is kind of is sort of natural, really, because it's a player-driven economy where the base items are available at all times from the vendors, but at the same time, a lot of the more advanced items and just mostly items in general that are created by players are going to be sold in player-owned shops. So these people determine the prices. So as there's more money in the economy, the prices will change. But that said, even if you start out and you're poor because you're a brand new player, you're going to have access to everything you need, except for maybe the most high-end stuff.
Christian Carrera asks, will there be animals you can own, like dogs and cats?
Okay, so we would really love to have animals in the outside world in Identity, but for now, at least by the point Identity launches, they'll just be roaming around your apartment or house. There will be dogs and cats, no exotic animals. You won't have emus running around your home or zebras. But in the future, one thing we would really love to do is allow those animals to follow you outside of the house. Maybe you go hunting and you have a hunting dog with you that can track down critters and deer.
Yeah. Now that said, though, I just noticed that when you're saying animals, you're saying the animals are all in your house, but he's talking about pets specifically, right? There are animals out in the wild.
Yes, there's bears and deer and other critters that you can go and hunt.
Actually, hunting is important because leather is an important resource, so hunters will have a lot of work to do.
Christian Gaffney just says release date.
Unknown. I mean, we can stay with Town Square. It's not too far off.
So the timeline we're looking at right now is we want to get Town Square out, shortly followed by the SWAT module. That's going to be a lot of fun. I think people are going to enjoy the SWAT module. And then after that, the racing module will follow SWAT. And then we'll see where we're at from there and jump into beta and just go from there and see where we're at.
If I'm not mistaken, aren't you working on all of the modules apart from the racing module?
Not sure. You mean, are we doing any work right now towards the other ones other than Town Square? Or
Yeah.
There is some. Actually, weapons were one of the first things we had finished in this game. So there's little bits of work, but our focus is on features that will be in Town Square and somehow linked to features in Town Square. Like the base systems and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. Not all of our resources are just put into Town Square. We have a few people working on that, and then we have a few people working on some of the back-end systems, as well as what's going to be included in the SWAT module later on. So hopefully the SWAT module won't take as long as the Town Square has, but we're definitely trying to cover all our bases.
This next question is actually a really good question, and I want to know it as well. 100% Beef asks if there's going to be a system where you can basically change your drivetrain in your cars to go from all-wheel drive to rear-wheel.
Yeah, now there are differences in the drivetrain. So you can have four-wheel drive, you can have two-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And it will be physically accurate in the way that the tires grip and have traction.
Yeah, some cars can do four-wheel drive. Some cars can do only two-wheel drive. But those cars that can do four-wheel drive can be manually switched from two-wheel to four-wheel.
It's going to also come down to your tires a lot on that one too.
Yes,
different tires have different sort of traction. So you can actually switch out your tires.
Yes, you can place different tires on your car and have better performance driving over snow or mud or grass.
Ghost Storm asks, can you ask for some more information regarding the fire department? What tools and apparatus will firefighters have in hand? Will they be able to turn out gear before getting in a vehicle?
Yeah, I mean, well, before getting in a vehicle, so essentially the way it works, let me just start from the beginning here. As a standard civilian, you're just a guy running around. Now, if you're part of the fire department, you'll actually go to a fire hall where you'll sign in and get your gear ready and stuff. Now, when calls come out, you will have access to the vehicles and such to go unseen, and they'll have the tools you need, like the hose and all that, which needs to be attached. Um, we have actually, my brother's a firefighter too, so it makes this sort of thing a little bit easier to get in detail. So yeah, it's essentially that, and we have different kinds of jobs. For example, if you crash your car into a tree, it could easily catch on fire, in which case a firefighter will be called. There's house fires and such that can just even happen at random on NPC buildings and such, where you will actually have to go inside and fight it out.
Wolf Brothers Gaming has got a question, well, actually two questions. How is the police, fire, and EMS recruitment system going to work on official servers? And will they have any upcoming gameplay footage of the module to show off?
On official servers, it could actually be quite different on unofficial servers. On official servers, though, you will have to do like a short testing sort of situation there to get into a department, and there will probably be some other requirements we've put in place for things like, well, if you're going to be a cop, obviously you can't have a massive criminal record and just hop in and be a cop the next day. So
Yeah, on official server, it's an automated qualification test. But private servers can choose to manually pick their who is qualified for these positions.
Right, Lewis GGK asks, do you have to have a driver's license to drive a car? Also the same with a gun's license.
yes to both. Well, yes to a gun license if you're going to buy it in a legal store. Not so much if you find other means, but yeah.
Jared McDonald asks, will there be mechanics to work with your friends so you can see where they are whenever and group up sort of like H1Z1?
So sort of what we just talked about not long ago. It's easy to get in contact with your friends. We give several different tools to get in contact with them and meet up, so it shouldn't be a problem, I wouldn't think.
Nick Smith asks, will clothes get dirty? So if you barrel roll while being shot at or step in mud, will it go onto your clothes?
Currently, it doesn't, but that's something that I'd love to see in the future. When time and funds permit to go down that road, it would definitely be pretty cool.
I just want to ask, can you hear the Canadian in Paradis's voice?
I went to Canada not too long ago, and honestly, you all sound like Americans. I'm not gonna lie.
You have the weird American accent, so he's more like me.
Pilot asks, I would like to know how the drug lab van is going to work. Can you still drive the van while someone is making drugs?
Okay, so with the meth lab RV, it can actually be a civilian vehicle or converted into a drug lab for creating meth. And the way this works is a player with a meth lab will have to find a location on the map that is safe for them to set up at. They will deploy the meth lab, and while it's deployed, they will not be able to move the vehicle. They'll have to undeploy it and then get back into the driver's seat and drive away.
You're actually going to see this pretty soon, so we should probably leave some of this for the visuals.
Sweet and Low 718 asks, I'm very excited for the clothing system since so many MMORPGs have limited good-looking clothing for women. I would love to craft clothes and sell it, but how hard will it be to do that?
Well, I mean, it won't be difficult per se. You're gonna have recipes, sort of like how a lot of games have blueprints and such like that. So you're going to get prints and everything and be able to. So essentially, there's cuts that you can get, which determines the shape of the clothing, and then you can control patterns on it, materials, and that sort of thing, coloring. So there's a lot of combinations you could create to the point that there's going to be like millions of combinations for clothing designs rather. When you make clothing, selling it, you can sell it yourself single-handedly, and it might be a little difficult, but when you make some money, you can actually open a clothing store in a town and sell your clothing that you design right out of that store.
kind of similar to clothes. You know, painting stuff, like you showed it off a little bit. Will you be able to paint using a graphics tablet?
On the clothing pattern, you mean?
No, well, both like on a canvas and on clothes.
On a I think on a canvas you probably could. I don't know. Sean has more experience with tablets than I do.
Yeah, there's been other games. Rust has a painting mechanic in it, and I've had some luck with the painting tool in Rust. So I think that the tool in Identity works pretty similarly. So you should be able to use your Wacom tablet or other pen tablet device.
For clothing, though, I would love to allow you to just freehand draw on clothing, but realistically, it can't be done because it'd be way too much data to transfer when people are running around. I mean, if you have 50 people running around you, we just can't give everybody that kind of freedom. But that's why we give a ton of options so that in those you can basically get what you're looking for, probably just with the options that we provide.
Bird Squawkington asks, can you be off the radar, meaning can you get in an RV, go out into the woods, live off the land, and basically be a hermit?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. You can living off the land is completely self-sustainable in Identity. You do not have to have a house, but you will have to find a solution for storage. Because you'll obviously be collecting a lot of resources while living out in the wild. But yeah, everything is there. You can chop trees for wood. You could hunt animals for meat. You can find shelter in some areas. It's all there.
Yeah, you can even gather water. If you have a home, there could be a well even on your house, or outside. But yeah, it's sort of like what Sean was talking about earlier. We like to give the tools for people to play how they want to. Even if it's not a gameplay that we initially planned ourselves, with the tools we give, we hope that people can just do whatever they like to do.
Right, nice. Chief GHC asks, how will malls work? Will there just be a ton of stores in the building, or will it be more like a town square with stores that are grouped in a certain location?
We do have malls. Actually, there's a small mall right in the town square, but it's probably going to be closed off when it first opens up, the town square module. But there are little malls, and some of them are even like, I don't know if we've gone into detail with you before about the safe area sort of thing. Some of them will be protected with metal detectors and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so some buildings, when you enter them, have metal detectors that will confiscate your weapons as you enter, and that's what I was referring to with the sub hub thing earlier. With some sub hubs in particular, you walk in, and they're just social gathering places. They're a safe place to get together with your friends and chat. So some buildings will take your weapons away when you enter, so that you won't be able to do any harm to anybody inside while you're there. So in that regard, so there will be a metal detector.
Yeah, in the design we had metal detector on.
Yes.
Wall,
However, okay, yeah.
In regards to RDM, like, what systems have you put in place, just roughly, that will help prevent it?
So the main one there is the stress system, which I think we went into briefly not too long ago on Reddit. The stress system essentially allows us to control your vulnerability based on what's happening around you or where you are, what you're doing. So to give an example, we'll go with this scenario of being robbed at gunpoint. So you're just walking down the street, someone comes up to you and they pull a gun on you. Now, initially, you are not vulnerable. So someone can't just pull out a gun and start shooting you because it's not going to hurt you much. And by the way, let me just stress here that this is on official servers. This system can be totally disabled on community servers. But now, your vulnerability when you're not stressed is low. You're not going to take much damage. When a gun gets pulled on you and someone's pointing a gun at you, your stress level is going to rise. So quickly, you're going to become vulnerable. Now, the option there is that you can surrender. You can put your hands on your head, and in doing so, your stress will drop, but they can rob you. And now, if you were to take the other action, if you were to just try and run down the alleys, you can take that option, but your stress is going to rise, so you do become vulnerable, and you might get shot. So really, the system artificially allows us to control kind of the way that the gameplay emerges, in that you can have that choice to comply for safety, or you can run and risk it. So
That actually sounds quite interesting. Realm Guardian asks, if you die, can people take your gun and other items?
guns, yes. If you're fully dead, rather, like if you're not bleeding out and such. Bleeding out, like I said earlier, they can take your cash on hand. When you bleed out completely and are dead, then weapons can be taken. Now, like we were saying,
as well as some
items,
inventory items.
some items, not all. Yeah, like we were saying earlier, things like clothing, they won't be taken.
Alright, that's all of the YouTube questions done. Now I've got a couple questions from me and my friend. My friend asks, what is your plan? What do you want to achieve, and what do you want to put out by the end of the year?
By the end of the year, we have a lot planned, and we can't really go into some of the details right yet, but I mean, Town Square is not far off. And once Town Square is out, from then we're going to continue expanding that system. So when Town Square releases, you're going to have a lot of functionality, but we're going to keep expanding that as new systems are created. So your Town Square will grow. And in that time, we're also going to be working on the SWAT module. So you're going to be getting to see a lot of that content as it's being produced, the combat.
The Town Square and the SWAT module should hopefully could be completely ready within the year. The racing module, specifically with the driving mechanics, are a little more complicated. So we've been working on those, and we've realized that it's going to take a while to get just right. So hopefully we'll have that ready by the end of the year. But
really, I mean, within the next year, you'll have Town Square shortly from now, and then the SWAT module probably later in that time. It's really kind of tough to say exactly, though, with this sort of thing, because we can run into hurdles that we're not anticipating. So in that sense, we can't really give it real time.
Like, in terms of the map development, how far along are you from completing the full map?
So we have the map, we have the terrain and that sort of thing mostly in place. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on asset propping. So essentially, we have modelers, we have a bunch that are constantly pumping out stuff every day. And these assets, it could be a sign or a bucket or a chair, these sorts of things we need a lot of to fill in this world. So really, that's an ongoing process. That'll be going right to the day of release. And it's such a huge job that it starts early and goes right to the end. But so we have the basic terrain and stuff is pretty much in place. So it's just constantly filling it in, filling it in.
I mentioned this to Motown a little while ago, and I really want to see this in the game. Will there be any way to get a free camera mode? Now, this can range from anything from a drone to something kind of like how the Rockstar editor has it, because I can see a lot of potential for the TV aspect in this game. Instead of watching YouTube videos on it, you could watch series made by people who are on Identity, if you get what I'm trying to say. So someone could recreate the Walking Dead, but in Identity. If you get what I mean?
Oh, I see. So you're talking about filming sort of like a live action thing within the game?
Yeah.
So the main thing with that is that cameras tend to be really expensive network objects. However, the second thing is that we don't want to give any unfair advantages to players that might take advantage of the camera and use it to spot enemies that they wouldn't otherwise spot first or third person view controlling their character.
Now that said, your cell phone can capture photos and that sort of thing. The problem there when it comes to video is a big technical hurdle, only because we would have to store that video, and that could get enormous very quickly. So
yeah.
So for that sort of thing, it would probably be better to actually record it, from gameplay.
Using your cell phone or from recording your screen.
Because
the only reason why I'm saying this is because I do have a few ideas that I want to do, but it requires to be able to get in the air in order to do it. Although I suppose Is there a mountain facing a city that I can like just look down at?
It depends what city you are near, but yeah.
Like the starting city, like that you come in on.
Ash Hill is where the town square is. It's in a valley, essentially. Is surrounded by mountain on 3 sides. So yeah,
I could probably get around that.
The drone thing, I mean, that's something we can look into further later, as long as they're very vulnerable,
Yeah,
and that
like you could do it as well. So, like the drones were in a certain range. So, say if it went like 50 meters away from you or something, it'd start fuzzing up and then it'll just crash to the ground or something.
Yeah, if you're talking about simply a drone for a vantage view and then the recording to be done yourself, then that's much more doable. But
that's what.
Again, before we make any commitments, we'd have to look at all the different angles and make sure that it's balanced. But it could be possible.
In terms of character customization, what can you do there? Like, can you change and mold the faces and stuff?
Yeah. Actually, we're just kind of finishing up in a system right now. The character customization, I'm trying to step you through it a little bit. You have head options, and the head options are more than just a face configuration. Actually, like the head shape itself can even be changed with a predetermined option. So things that look natural, like different races actually have slightly different head shapes. So once you choose your head and your face, then that's your base to morph. So from that point on, you can change a lot of things. You can change the shape of your mouth, move it around, your eyes, your nose, your ears, all that kind of stuff. So from that point on, there are other things too. Like complexion, your eyes. The list goes on. Things like tattoos, though, we want to leave those to be acquired as you're actually playing the game, not really in character customization. Because as you are probably aware, I don't know about your listeners, but some of these tattoos and that sort of thing can be attached to achievements. So, for example, shanking people in prison could get you a prison tattoo, which is an example I think we've given you before. And so when you first make your character, you won't have tattoos, but you can get them. And makeup on females and on males too can be changed pretty easily, whereas a lot of your face, when you change your face configuration, obviously that's kind of what you have and you're stuck with that. But there are cosmetics like makeup that you can switch out pretty much any time just by using the proper spot.
In terms of hairstyles, aren't there going to be hair physics? So if like there's wind or something, just for example.
Yeah, for long hair, yes. For ponytails will bob around when you run, that sort of thing. Long hair will actually blow. Even your clothing, if you're wearing, if it's a female wearing a dress or a guy in a trench coat, for example, the wind will actually blow those around, and moving will move them as well, all physics based.
I've seen this being mentioned on Twitter a couple of times, and people asking for reskin DLCs. Like I've seen like apocalyptic DLC, or something like that. Are you considering doing things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we consider. I think actually Sean brought this up in a meeting about a month ago. Obviously, it's not going to be there initially, but after release, I guess we could look at it. The problem is that it wouldn't just be a simple reskin where you're going to be playing. I mean, it's kind of difficult for us because we have this very large focus on immersion. So we always want to control, art in a sense that it's immersive to the other people. But I mean, if we can, maybe when we're done, we could look at mechanics for like different servers or something that run a different DLC or something like that. Maybe
I'd love to see a Western type of thing, like with horses and stuff like that. That'd be cool.
Sean's a Western nut, so
I would love to see that. Like that would be great. It would be awesome if in the future someday we could create a DLC that just changes the theme of the game. A visual overhaul, and be able to allow people to visit these other islands or themes, if you will, set in different time periods. A Western would be awesome. A moon base would be really cool too, but of course we do want to keep the immersion consistent. So
Yeah, it's just that if we do go down a road, and it's something we're going to look at for sure, then it's just that a server is going to be one or the other. Obviously, it's not just going to be a skin; it's going to be a totally kind of different environment. The whole world will be different.
I know you've spoke about aircraft before, but have you ever thought about like only police having aircraft?
You know, it's a little touchy for us, but generally, if we're not going to give it to civilians, we don't want to give it to anybody else either. And the whole reason that we don't want to include aircraft in the game is because we don't want players to fly over all the action. We want interaction between players to be personal and close. So we don't want you to miss that stuff. We want you to get into it and encounter other players along your route from point A to point B.
And on what he said too, with the police side of things, is he was saying how we don't want to give it to the police if the civilians will have it. And the reason is that there's a lot of PvP in Identity, especially between criminals and police. So in that sense, we have to make sure that they're balanced to a sense. Now, police will inherently probably have better equipment as a base. So, I mean, if you're a SWAT officer, obviously, you're going to have some pretty decent base equipment. So having helicopters then in addition to that would just kind of throw the scales pretty extremely, I think.
Have you ever thought about Twitch streaming development?
We have, actually. We haven't committed to anything, but it's something we've been talking about.
What are we like?
He's talking about publicly showing like our development process happening.
Oh yeah.
Like this is kind of more towards trying to get people to see that the game's not a scam, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know, when we grow our team a little, we'll.
You're gonna start seeing a lot more evidence to show that it's not a scam. I mean, we have a lot of employees and stuff, so obviously, you know, the money's going somewhere, right? But you're gonna start seeing a lot more fairly soon.
So when do you think the next development video will be released?
For the most part, a lot of the mechanics are mostly in place for what we want to show next. So there's art and everything that needs to be done, and we have work being done on that now. So you know, I'm not really sure. I can't really give an exact time, but it's going to be it's going to be before Town Square, that's for sure.
So the last question is, what do you say to people who think that this game is a scam or is never coming out?
Just save your money and wait, you know, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's really that. If you're not sure, you don't have to commit.
Yeah,
but I mean, things are going to get a little more expensive later, but not so much that it's going to rock your world or anything.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, we don't like it. We feel the same way about a lot of games. You know, we're gamers too, so we encounter a lot of Kickstarter projects and other games on Steam that we are really unsure about ourselves. So we definitely encourage people just wait until things are further along and then make your decision.
As time goes on. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
Yeah, go ahead.
As time goes on, we're going to, you know, be releasing more and more information and content. So, you know, those fears will slowly go away with each bit that we put out there. There's nothing we can really say to prove that it's not a scam, other than there's a lot of people who are making, you know, they have a career in game development working here on Identity. So, you know, they're not working for free. I know that much.
Alright, that's the last of my questions. Do you have anything else you have to say?
No, really, the main thing I wanted to say is that I absolutely love your voice. You have an incredible accent.
Cheers.
And it's perfect for video entertainment. I really hope that you will run a talk show in Identity.
Maybe. I've got a few ideas up my sleeve.
Alright, that's great.
But yeah, thanks for having you on. And if you guys enjoyed the video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
Hey,
yeah, thank you.